Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar part one, Weight Management in Legumes. This event is a joint effort between two Horizon Europe initiatives. VALERECO, which focuses on valorizing legume from agroecological transitions, and GOOD project, which explore agroecological with management across diverse crops. I would like to thank our speakers for joining today and preparing their contributions. Our agenda will move between broader perspectives and detailed trial results from Greece, Portugal, and Serbia will be presented. But before starting, I would like to invite each of our speakers to briefly introduce themselves so we all know who's in the room. So please, let's start with our first speaker, Irene. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm Irene Katsaros, and I'm here representing the Center for Functional Ecology at the University of Coimbra in Portugal. And I'm working as a research fellow for the VALERECO project and collaborated previously with the GOOD project, also being a research fellow.
Thank you very much, Irene. Lara?
Hello, everybody. I'm Lara Agnoli. I work at the Burgundy School of Business, and I'm work package leader for the GOOD project, taking care of the socioeconomic analysis, and I also work for the VALERECO project, but today I will present you results from GOOD.
Thank you very much, Lara. Yannis from Agricultural University of Athens.
From Agricultural University of Athens to present some results of field trials in VALERECO program, and also involved in several activities and collecting the data for the GOOD project as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yannis. Els?
So my name is Els Wijnstra. I'm also here to represent Portugal for the Living Lab Cowpea, which is part of the GOOD project. So the company I work for is Semente Vivas, Living Seed Semente Vivas, which is based in Idanha Nova, which is actually a vegetable seed producer.
Thank you very much, Els, as well. Yegor?
Hello, everybody. I'm Yegor Milodinovic from Institute of Field and Vegetable Crops, Novi Sad, Serbia, and I will present our field trial from our living lab in Serbian VALERECO project.
Thank you very much, Yegor. And our last speaker, Milan.
Yes, thank you, Metaxia. Milan Branko from the Maize Research Institute, Serbia. And I'll talk about the results from Serbia, from soybean trial, from Soybean Living Lab. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you, for the brief introductions. We're going to start with our first presentation. It's by Irene Katsaros from the University of Coimbra on literature review on barriers for legume adoption. Irene, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me try to see if I can run through the slides. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So today I will be introducing you to the key findings from our work we collaboratively did on the entry points to the Common Agricultural Policy, the CAP, for legumes. So the goal is to show you how we can strengthen the support for legumes by aligning their ecosystem services with the CAP instruments. So, sorry about that. Why legumes matter? So legumes can provide critical ecosystem services that are essential for life. For example, nitrogen fixation, soil fertility, biodiversity enhancement, and resilience to climate stress. Yet their potential remains underutilized in the European farming system. So despite these benefits, legumes, as I said, are poorly integrated in the CAP framework. You can see like a graphic here on the left-hand side of the screen. For now, current subsidies and eco schemes prioritize more monocultures and cereals, leaving the legumes underfinanced and underseen, undervalued. So Here we identified in our study some multiple factors that could be barriers in the adoption of legumes within the current funding scheme. For example, agronomic gaps in the breeding and management, economic disincentives, because nowadays the market reward the yield and not the sustainability, institutional misalignment because the cap payments don't fully recognize legumes, as I previously said, although they are multifunctional crops and they cover like multiple ecosystem services. And lastly, cultural resistance, because both farmers and consumers actually remain hesitant in introducing the first ones into their cropping system, legumes, and the latter ones into their diet, these legumes. So there are several ways, though, that we developed where we could actually incorporate legumes into the current CAP. How? For example, eco schemes should reward ecosystem services and not yield, as I previously mentioned. Agro-environmental measures should support diversification, crop diversification, right? Rural development funds should focus on value chains and processing. And last but not least, also like major funding support schemes like Horizon Europe, for example, or EIP Agri should focus more on the integration of legumes and support their well-being within the food system. Some policy recommendations here to unlock the potential of legumes. We are proposing a little bit in this white paper that we co-wrote, revising the subsidy schemes, again, with reward to ecosystem services, funding more breeding programs for climate resilience, strengthening, again, extension services and demonstration lighthouse farms that can show the potential of legumes, and lastly, support value chain infrastructure and, again, consumer awareness campaigns. So I bring you this graphic because what my point would be is that legumes are not just crops, so they can be an entry point to systemic change. So by promoting legumes into the current CAP, we can accelerate the agroecological transition, reduce the input dependency, and actually increase the resilience. So this graphic just shows how a niche, if it remains a niche, it will no longer be accepted as a new regime. But if we try to introduce legumes within the current schemes, we can actually just discard the old regime and create a new one. Connecting in this context, in the context of this webinar, legumes to the GOOD project as well, we can say that legumes are also essential weed managers. So they can be incorporated as cover crops in intercropping systems, and they can suppress weeds, so while enhancing the soil cover and reduce the reliance on herbicides. And that's the main goal of the GOOD project as well, to reduce these glyphosate inputs by conventional farmers. So our project, the VALERECO project, clearly aligns with other EU initiatives. And the aim of this project overall is to valorize ecosystem services of legumes through living labs, through digital tools and policy integration. So our work really well fits the broader movement. So we look forward to more collaborations on this matter. Yeah, an essential part of the VALERECO ecosystem is not just the research and the policy, but also farmer training and peer-to-peer learning. So demonstration plots, farmer field schools, and exchanges allow this horizontal flow of knowledge. And it is quite essential to translate technical recommendations into locally adapted solutions, because in the end, we want farmers to be empowered, and they are the ones who are going to be the innovation leaders within their own local communities. So last but not least, legumes are undervalued but essential. So by addressing these barriers and leveraging the cap entry points, we can scale up legume introduction into the current sustainable farming systems. And importantly, as I mentioned, this transition is not just driven by policy only. Farmer trainings and peer-to-peer learning, as seen in the VALERECO project, ensures that knowledge is rooted into practice and shared among the communities in a horizontal way. So I invite you, the audience, to reflect on how the policy, the practice, and farmer-led innovation can work together to achieve this greater goal. So for now, I thank you so much for your attention, and I hope the later presentation will grow more understanding for you on the work we've been doing so far.
Thank you very much, Irene, for your contribution and presentation. We're going to take questions at the end of all the presentations. And now we're going to continue with Lara, presenting stakeholder perception of ecological weed management in Portugal and Serbia. So Lara, please go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm going to present you now are the first results from the socioeconomic perspective. So you will see throughout this webinar results from the trial fields of the Living Lab in Portugal and Serbia. What we will see now are what are the perception of stakeholders toward adoption by farmer of agroecological weed management practices. So statistics on the use of herbicides are alarming. You need to consider that currently herbicides account for 54% of the total consumption of pesticide in Europe. And if we look at the future, it is forecasted that farmers will manage around 2.4 million of metric tons of herbicides in 2027. From the other side, the European Union with the farm to fork strategy is pushing to reduce the use of herbicides towards Europe. So this is what agroecological weed management is trying to do. So agroecological weed management represents a range of integrated strategies, like, for example, cover crops and intercropping. It's not about canceling the use of herbicide, but is about targeting the use of herbicides, with, of course, positive consequences on the soil and on food security. But our research question has to do about what should we do in order to push farmers to apply these methods. So we decided to don't ask directly to farmers. We asked it in another part of the study, but to understand how people that have contacts with the farmers perceive what are the drivers and barriers to adoption. So our research question is, our research objective is to explore stakeholder perception towards the application of agroecological weed management practices for this webinar with a focus on legumes. In fact, with GOOD, we manage 16 living labs. 2 of them, the one from Portugal and Serbia, are about legumes, so cowpeas and soybean. Again, you will see more results from the trial fields perspective from my colleagues in the following presentations. What we did from a socioeconomic perspective was to run interviews involving stakeholders. So for each living lab, the partners in the living lab interview 5 policymakers, 5 researchers, and 5 industry players, for a total of 30 people interviewed, from which we got our results. So what we did was first to give a definition about what agroecological weed management is, to have a common, knowledge about the topic within everyone. And then we asked people, what do you think about it? And what do you think can be the main barrier, the main benefit, and the main leverages in order to push farmers to apply agroecological weed management practices. And what I'm going to show you are the first results. So basically, the main barriers in adoption result to be linked to economic and resource constraints. They consider that a farmer may perceive to have high cost for equipment, for the mechanization, and also for labor. Another big gap that emerges in terms of knowledge and awareness. Then another barrier perceived by the stakeholders is linked to institutional and policy weaknesses, as well as technical limitation. But together with the knowledge and technical gaps, also a cultural and behavioral resistance emerges as quite strong. In particular, it is highlighted a sort of skepticism from farmers and the difficulties, to deviate from the normal and conventional practices, but also some, let's say, ideological barrier. In particular, I want to highlight the quotation from one interviewee that say, often the barrier is not exactly technical and monetary. It is also cultural and ideological. Farmers have a strong philosophy that if there is a single weed in the crop, it is because it's not well treated. Okay, so technical, but also cultural and ideological barrier emerged from the stakeholders. When we talk about drivers, why a farmer should apply this kind of techniques, it emerged that, of course, because it's important from protecting the environment, is important for the health both of human but also of animals, and is important for soil fertility and sustainability. But also the economic potential emerged through the interviews, especially with a long-term perspective. And in particular, I wanted to highlight one quotation from one interview that say, the economic part is often forgotten, but it would be interesting to see the fact that balancing the system will bring about a reduction in cost in the long term. Economic viability is a study that has to be done. And I'm quite happy about this quotation because actually this is another task of the GOOD project from the socioeconomic perspective. We have a task that is devoted to assess economic viability. When we talk about what are the leverages that the stakeholder identify to push farmers to adopt agroecological weed management practices, of course, subsidies and financial incentives were some of the leverages that came out from the interviews, together, of course, with education and training, give practical demonstration, give advisory services, but also integrate agroecological weed management practices into a curriculum of teaching and learning experiences. Of course, research and innovation emerge to be an important leverage to push, but also, and very important and very much repeated among the interviews, communication and trust building. So it's important, and it emerges to be important, to use simple farmer-friendly languages, showcasing success stories and field demonstration. In particular, one of the interviewees says, the in-situ demonstration part is the most important. Having someone to demonstrate to the farmer that the practices work is the most fundamental thing for them to understand and see how it works. So the importance to transmit this knowledge and make farmers understand that these practices work. So when analyzing a different perception from different kinds of stakeholders, there are some basic differences that emerge that are pretty much linked to the role that stakeholders have in the legume industry. In particular, researchers point out the need of sharing knowledge, innovation, and environmental benefits. The policymakers stress regulatory frameworks as leverages, as much as subsidies and systematic sustainability practices. Industry players are more focused on the economic feasibility, on the practical implementation, and in farmer persuasion. So what are the take-home messages out of this piece of research? Agroecological weed management adoption needs a systematic support. This means that it's not enough to have subsidies alone, but there should be matches with training and demonstration trials. It's very important to bridge the research practice gap, so farmers need to see and experience results in their own context. Policies must address farm diversity, so should target policies that are oriented to match different kinds of farms. And again, cultural change is as important as technical change, and it's important to build trust and awareness among farmers. So this is what emerged from our first results for the Legume Living Labs. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lara, for sharing these valuable perspectives and for your presentation. We are going to move on to the presentations regarding the field trials, and we'll start with the field trial from Greece. Yannis, the stage is yours.
Should I share screen μεταξύ, okay?
No. You can change the slides here.
Let me. Okay. I see
Yes.
that I can change it. Okay. Yes, so these are some results from the first experimental year of VALERECO trials, and there are some results from two legume crops, Sula, Disarum coronarium, and lentils, a grain legume. It changes, yes, okay. So the role of legumes in agroecological weed management can be seen by following some cultural practices. These are the inclusion of legumes in crop rotation schemes to diversify the field, the intercropping schemes, and also by the practice of cover cropping. These are the three major crop diversification practices for weed management. This is our experimental field in Thiva in central Greece, a common agricultural area cultivated mainly by cotton and wheat. Here are some parameters regarding the soil and climatic conditions of the experimental site. And to continue with the trial setup, we established a strip plot design, a 2-factorial trial where the main plots were there 5 crop rotation schemes, 7 crop rotation schemes, as you can see, including legumes, 2 cultivars of lentil, Sula, and wheat also as a cereal. And we performed 5 weed management treatments, 1 sole crop without weeding, treatment 2 sole crop with mechanical weeding, treatment 3 intercropping without weeding, treatment 4 cover cropping without extra weeding, and treatment 5 cover cropping with additional weed management as well. We had a total of 105 subplots of size of 20 square meters. And now some definitions of the treatments. For intercropping, I have to say that in plots of lentil, wheat was used as an intercrop. In the plots of wheat, Sula was used as an intercrop, while in plots of Sula, wheat was also as an intercrop. There were 2 cultivars of lentils. We hypothesized that they have difference in drought tolerance, and the dominant weeds of the experimental area were sterile oat and wild mustard. They're dominant in this area. We measured weed density and biomass, also the NDVI of the crop, and I'm presenting today some data on the grain yield of the first lentil cultivar that was harvested late May. We analyzed the data first with 2-way ANOVA, but I'm sure since it's the first experimental year and the effects of crop rotation cannot be visible, I'm presenting you results comparing treatments in each crop to have some key findings. Like we can see that treatment 5 almost achieved 6-time reduction compared to the untreated control. Intercropping treatment 3 was achieved also some good levels of weed suppression in this low competitive crop lentil, which has a lot of issues with weed competition, especially with the broadleaf weeds where selective herbicides are not easily available. As for the density of wild oat measured in stems per square meter, the treatment 5 was the best out of all. As also this is a common observation with Sinapis arvensis, the wild mustard plant, where the sole crop with mechanical weeding, inter-row weeding, was also an effective practice in reducing the density of this weed. Next one, you can see some pictures like it's interesting, the picture on the right where Sula is emerging as an intercrop in wheat plots, covering the space, ready to suppress the growth of wheat seedlings. Also, some results on the second cultivar of lentil, where intermediate levels of suppression corresponded to treatments 2, 3, or 4. And best treatments was treatment 5, cover cropping with additional weed management by mechanical means. And this is like our cover crop, which was a mixture of wild oat, oat crop, along with Brassicaceae white mustard, Xenapis alba cover crop. And on the right, you can see the mechanical termination of this cover crop by flail mowing around spring. And now the wheat biomass in Sula plots, Sula had less wheat biomass compared to lentil because Sula accumulates more biomass, so it's more a competitive crop. Even with sole mechanical weeding, the reduction of wheat biomass can be notable in treatment 2, and also wheat intercropping can reduce wheat biomass by 60% around, I can say, compared to the case of control. Also, the crop biomass, Sula accumulates more biomass than any other crop, followed by wheat, and there are the lentil cultivars, because lentil is a plant with low stem height and not direct growth. And also with lentil yield and NDVI measurement at 60 days after sowing, we can see that an NDVI can be a measure to predict the yield among the treatments in the end of the growing season. There was a strong polynomial, a strong exponential relationship, a positive relationship. And regarding some key conclusions, the highest wheat biomass was observed in lentil plots. High wheat biomass in lentil plots indicates its low competitive ability and necessity to perform weed control treatments. Mechanical weed control can be effective in legume crops, as also in previous studies we had in chickpea, and it can be combined also with other cultural practices as adjustments in the sowing rates. The cover crop treatment proved effective in managing weeds in Sula plots, especially when combined with post-emergence weed control, because the cover crop residues delay weed emergence. They control the early cohort, and then an additional weed management in the rows and mechanical treatment can eliminate the second cohort of weed emergence. NDVI can be a reliable indicator of crop yield in many cases, as in previous words. And all above practices studied within the framework of our VALERECO project aim to develop agroecological weed management systems and promote their broader adoption and exploitation of ecosystem services provided by legumes, the diversity that can be added from legumes in a given field. The field trial will continue for 2 more years to present more robust and repeated results in next meetings. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jan, for sharing the first results from our Greek field trial in VALERECO. And now we're going to turn to Portugal and Good Living Lab, especially focused on cowpea. So, Els, over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon. Yeah, I have some unstable internet connection, so if you have any issues, please let me know. Oh. Let me go back. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the good trials, the results from the Living Lab cowpea. So our Living Lab cowpea is being held in Iranha Nova region, which is the center of Portugal, close to the Spanish border. We have an annual rainfall of 635 millimeters, and basically this rainfall can either be even less, like 400 millimeters, up to 1,000. This falls mainly in the winter season, or let's say from fall until spring, and then in summer there's no rainfall, and it has quite high temperatures. So let me see. So in our one too many. So in our Living Lab cowpea, first of all, the way that cowpea is traditionally grown here is usually tillage. So there's soil preparation through tillage with a disc harrow, and then the seeding is done very late in spring, end of May, beginning of June, as a form of weed control. So in our Living Lab, we are trying to do this in different ways. So not only for weed control, we're sowing cover crop not only for weed control, but also as a way of implementing a no-till or direct sowing system to be able to have more soil conservation management. So let's see the next one. The agroecological weed management practices is basically sowing of cover crops before the main crop, inoculation of cover crops, and different cover crop termination methods. This is our experimental design, at least for the organic plot. So you have 3 main blocks. You can see up the light green blocks is the non-inoculated seeds from the cover crops. Then in the middle, the white block are the cover crops that were inoculated, and in gray, the block is the control block. So sorry, I just go back to the termination treatment. So basically, in the organic we have chain mower, tillage, and roller crimper. So for seed inoculation, we at the beginning of the project we send soil to Italy, to the University of Pisa, for arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi to be multiplied and extracted. They were sent back to us, and we inoculated them in 3 different species of our cover crop mix. So our cover crop mix is actually a 6-species mix. It has oats, rye, lupins, flax, mustard, and turnip. Only 3 of these can be inoculated. So we did rye, oats, and flax, and then the sowing. So we did a cover crop sowing last year in October for the 2nd experimental year. And so you can see here cover crop establishment on the left side. You see some lupins, you see the cereals, the mustard, and then on the right hand side you basically just see wheat, which is a control block. Then in organic, the cover crop terminations were actually 3. It was tillage, chain mower, and voller crimper. You can see the more brown plots are the ones that had tillage. Then the yellow ones had chain mower termination treatment, and the ones that are still in green still have the cover crops because they were only terminated like 10 days before sowing the main crop, cowpea. Then in conventional, there were 2 additional treatments, which was herbicide full dose and half dose. So the cowpea sowing was done with a direct sower, as you can see on the left-hand side. And then what resulted from that was mainly that only in the block that had a tillage treatment, there was good cowpea germination. Some preliminary results from our living lab until now. So the University of Pisa analyzed root samples. We sent them in spring. Samples of, in this case, rye, of one of the cover crops, and they checked on the percentage of root colonization in the rye, and you can see that the inoculated rye or the inoculated seeds led to plants which have a much higher root colonization. And this is specifically true in the organic systems, which are the orange bars. Some more preliminary results on cover crop biomass and coverage. So this seems very obvious, but it's to say that the better the coverage of the cover crops and the more biomass in the cover crops, the more the weeds are suppressed. Then here on weed biomass and density in cover crops, you can see on the left-hand side weed biomass, on the right-hand side weed density, and then the parts that are circled, which is for this are the conventional system. So on the left-hand side, you see that in the conventional system, wheat biomass is statistically significantly decreased in the blocks with inoculated cover crops. So also the same goes for wheat density. Then on cowpea biomass itself, so on the main crop, there we had some challenges, as I said before. Basically, we have very low or no germination in the blocks that didn't have soil preparation. So only in the tillage block we actually have cowpea, cowpea plants and pods. And then something else on wheat biomass in the conventional side. So this graph only has results from the conventional side. Basically, you don't really see a lot of difference between the different practices on wheat biomass. So we had the chain mower treatment, roller crimper tillage, herbicide full and half. And as you can see, there's some more weed presence in the tillage blocks. But then if you see between them, all of them, there's no statistical difference, which means that actually in the conventional system, the herbicide treatments are not more effective in suppressing weeds than the other methods that were used. Okay, so this is a picture of one of our co-creation activities. It's one of the field days where we go with farmers, researchers, students to see the different blocks and see how these treatments are being implemented, to share this with people from this region. Well, thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Els, for your contribution and your very nice presentation. We are going to move on in VALERECO Living Lab again, and this time our living lab in Serbia that focuses on soybean. And Yegor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. How do I control the presentation?
You can see in the left down in the screen that you can change the slides.
Like
Great.
this.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you very much. So this is trial in Serbia at a glance, and this is how it looks from the air. This picture is taken by our drone, and our trial comprises of 3 plant species, spring barley, soybeans, and chickpeas. And we had 5 treatments: mechanical weed control, no mechanical weed control, same with green manure, so that's 4, and the 5th was intercropping. In setting the trial, we first had to make a field design, then to perform soil analysis, that was the 0 state. Then we did seedbed preparation, sowing of the cover crop, harrowing cover crop, then again soil analysis prior of planting of main crop, then planting the field trial, and then we did our measurements, evaluations, and assessments. We did a lot of parameters, biometrics and ecophysiological, but because the time is limited, we will say just some of them, most important being yield, weed parameters, and diseases. But before that, as I said, we did why we choose soybeans and chickpea. Soybeans are by far the most important legume crop in Serbia and in Europe, and we can easily say in the world, because it is a major source of plant protein and oil. And the chickpea provides nutritious food for expanding world population and will become increasingly important with climate change. And it is not that close and that familiar with the farmers, and that is the reason why we used VALERECO project to get farmers used to some other legumes, like, for example, chickpea. First, we did soil analysis, and of all parameters, we used soil organic carbon, soil total nitrogen, available phosphorus, pH, exchangeable potassium, and organic matter. And organic matter, I think, in this stage is the most important. So in the first table, in results before trial sowing, you can see that percentage of organic matter is 2.28, 0.55, 0.81, 0.85. And in the lower table, marked red, you can see that results without a cover crop, for example, in the first replication is 2.78, and with pea as a cover crop is 2.57. And the same results are in the second replication, some different in the third. But we think that those results are because the peas took the organic matter and still they did not disintegrate into soil, but that will be the focus of our statistical analysis and our explanation of the trial. So the yield of spring barley, as you may see, the highest yield of spring barley is on the intercropping treatment. And spring barley did not use the advantages of green manure of winter pea. So the yields are higher without green manure, and they are not, I wouldn't say that they are statistically significant between treatments in a green manure and without green manure. Soybeans are different. The best results, though not statistically significant, are made on the green manure treatments, and the lowest yields were in the intercropping. And same goes for the chickpea, but as you may see, spring barley suffocated the chickpea, so we have really low yields of chickpea in the intercropping, and somewhat better results on green manure as opposed without it. When we talk about the insects, on soybeans, we have spider mites and stink bugs, and the abundance in July when soybean is flowering were not they were not that much present. They were much more present in August in seed filling period for soybeans, and you can see that stink bugs in that period are prevalent on the spider mite. Then we have more insects in chickpea, more different insects. We had fly, bees, stink bugs, and lema, but lema was only in the intercropping, which means that they attack only spring barley, and we have somewhat a lower number of insects in chickpea compared to the soybeans. Weed density. It is obvious that in the intercropping there was no place for the weeds, and of course the weeds were more present when there was no mechanical weed control, and the same was in the chickpea. No weeds in the intercropping treatment, and there was more weeds without mechanical control. And then we have some vegetation indices. We have TGI, we have NDVI and NDRE. And basically, those are all indices that indicate greenness and the measurement of chlorophyll. And it could be said that there are higher values for most indices in chickpea compared to soybeans, and that treatments highly influence NDVI in chickpea, and in soybeans, the highest value of NDRI was in the treatment B with no mechanical weed treatment. So that was our trial at a glance. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yegor. We will stay in Serbia for our next presentation as well, but now we'll look at the soybean trials carried out within the GOOD project, and I give the floor to Milan Branko.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, that's true. That's the last presentation for today's webinar. So it'll be the story about the weed control in soybeans. So you'll see what we do within the GOOD project with this year and the last year results in weed control. So let me change the slide. Okay. Just to return. Yes. What do we do within the project? We have two living labs today focus on soybeans, but eventually we have two living labs with focus on maize and soybeans, and both grow in either conventional or organic farming system. As you can see, the living labs are close to each other, separated, of course. And for the project, we had to select 3 cover crops and to grow maize and soybeans without cover crops, so after termination to solve them. So based on our experience, we chose rye, common vetch, and oat. And you can see easily that in the picture that the treatment containing no cover crops had already some weeds in the spring of 2024. So also within the weed control measures, in the conventional farming system, we have the control variant. We have herbicide at the full rate. We used bentazone and imazamox. Herbicide at the reduced rate, so 1/2 of the rate. bio-based herbicide, use pelargonic acid, and mechanical weed control, use inter-row cultivator. And in the organic farming system, the control plot, treatment-free, mechanical weed control, bio-based herbicide, fall seed bed preparation, and mulch. And you'll see an interesting results, although we did biomass with evaluation 3 times in each year. So the first year in the soybean organic, we can see that on the right-hand side, it's the plot having no cover crops. So we have very good, very large with dry biomass. So when we integrate any of cover crop, rye, common wedge, or oat, we have a significant reduction in wheat biomass. But here in the organic productions, as we can see, soybean, we even heard earlier today that those Fabaceae plants are low competitors. Even when we have, for example, here in a mechanical weed control, about something like 100 grams of dry mass of weeds, we have very high impact of those weeds on grain yield. So last year, we didn't have any yield in the organic farming system, although we have some very good results in weed control, comparing that about 90% of biomass reduction compared to control treatments. Okay, what's happening? What happened in the soybean conventional? Again, more or less the same story. So we have very good results as well using herbicides and even using reduced rates of herbicides. So very good weed control compared to control, and of course, so treatments not having cover crops. So something we saw earlier from Yanis, that even with 100, especially in organic farming system, about 100 grams of dry biomass of wheat it's very high. So also we have to mention the influence of both year, last year and this year, very dry and hot, especially this year, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. So for the second year of the trial, so based on the all evaluation, we select rye as a cover crop and we continue with it. So this is the same plot, just upside down. So we had rye that was inoculated, non-inoculated, and the treatment having no cover crops. So the inoculation was done, was provided from our colleagues from Pisa, University of Pisa from Italy, based on our soil that we have sent them. So, and you'll see the results. So yes, actually we used the same weed control measures in both conventional and organic, like in the first year of the experiment. And the results are more or less the same. So in the conventional soybeans, you can see that there is the real effect of using cover crops. So even in rye that was non-inoculated, we have about 50% just comparing control plots without. Here in our fields, there is 3 major weeds that are Johnson grass. We have common lump squatters and common ragweed, so very problematic weeds, but there is a solution. But here, as we can see, with applying herbicide in the full rate, we have a good control that's more than 95%. Even in the treatments having reduced rates, we have very good results as well. But indeed, the problem is with the drought, with very high temperatures during the season. For example, this year we had something that never happened before. So we have 50 days in a row without any precipitation, combined with very high temperatures. So that was from the end of May till the middle of July. We didn't have any participation. So it influenced both soybeans in conventional and organic, having no yields at all. So that was, I mean, the results are for weed control are indeed excellent, but when it comes to grain yield, it's not good. So as you can see in organic production system, more or less the similar results as it was reported for the first year. Very good results in mechanical weed control, but still about 100 dry biomass of weeds is very high for soybeans. For example, having maize, it's the results are much better. So have good results in maize weed control, but that we'll talk about some other time. So that's most for me. Thank you very much for attention, and we are open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milan, and thanks to all our speakers for their presentation. We now move to the Q&A session. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat, and I will read them out for our speakers. Are there any questions? Comments? In any case, also feel free to contact us after the webinar if you want to connect with our speakers or you want to exchange more. I can't see any questions. Yes, Milan.
Yes, thank you, Metaxia. I'm going to ask Yanis about the similarity of the results, because in the both lentils and Sula, you have I saw the similar dry mass biomass of weeds. So how it impacted yield? So here in soybeans, its impact very big. The impact was very high. So what about your crops?
Well, Milan, hello. Yes, we have similar because it's of continuous years of specific crops that are cultivated there, like these two, which have been adapted and well established, like they produce a very high amount of seeds, and it's also very possible that especially the wild oat is tolerant to some herbicides, to some ACC inhibitors, I guess. It's very suspicious, this observation. Well, with lentils, even a low amount of wheat biomass, it's a disaster. Sula, it's more resistant to competition because it develops a lot of side shoots, and even with wider row spacing, the plants can cover and shade the soil in the rows. So there are weeds, and in this case, it's more the wild mustard plants that is most dangerous, because it has erect growth and it can compete. It can compete. But as I see from the second year, it also depends on when the soil is warm enough to have with the emergence. We have to see, and we have to see which are the effects of different crops alternating in this land, and maybe optimize our weed control treatments between the rows, or maybe do something in the rows as well, especially in Sula.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can wrap up since there are no questions in the chat, probably, or maybe the speakers, you want to have a question or something. I want to thank all of our speakers for sharing their insights and everyone here for joining the discussion. With this way, that brings the part one on weed management in legumes to a close. If everything else we didn't get to, just reach out and we'll be happy to connect you with the presenters. We're looking forward to keeping up the conversation. It's the first part of our webinar series with the GOOD project. Until then, take care and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.